Hello, Sagittarius. Welcome to Ula Tea Leaf Readings. My name is Lenor, and today we are going to start our reading with the energy of the Knight of Discs. Now, every tea leaf reading, and this is a tea leaf reading, don't worry, here's the bowl with the tea leaves. Every reading we start with a tarot card. Right? And it is going to let us know kind of what is the energy of the atmosphere around. What are some of the key players going through the situations, the scenarios, the ordeals of our lives? Okay, so we have the Knight of Discs. What is the Knight of Discs all about? It could be also coins, pinnacles, panacles. I know some people are real sticklers about what you call it. I go off the Thoth system, so we call them discs here, okay? So this is a person who is mastering the physical world. This is somebody who's building a business, who has been successful, who has made, a little something for themselves, has kept a house together, continues to hone their skills, their interests, their hobbies, and also is usually, anyhow, family-minded, I would say, domestically minded. It doesn't have to be the standard, married with kids and grandkids and the dogs and the 2 cars or whatever. It doesn't have to be that, of course. But the relationships of their life, right? They are focused on what's going on in their waking moments, right? This is a person that's looking for a legacy, right? This is a person that is building an empire. And so let's go ahead, and that could be you, obviously, Sagittarius. But I love entering with this energy because it does feel what's the word? Like firm, solid. It feels like you have some confidence going, right? You feel like you know what you're doing. You are where you're supposed to be, and you know that, right? You also know what you need to do, and you are willing to do it. And not only are you willing to do it, you're gonna do it. And so that is also the energy, and I'm happy to feel that. Okay, let's go ahead. We're going to lift this thing up. And I want to say thank you so much for clicking on this reading. I am filming here on October 7th, 2025. This will be coming out October 8th, 2025. And I just want to let you know, the context of the time that this thing has been filmed in, right? So whatever happens today or has happened today definitely influences the energies of the reading. And I don't know, did I say if you want to like, subscribe, or leave a comment? I would love to hear from you. I'm very interested in what brings you here. What kind of questions do you have? Are you somebody who is kind of just checking different kinds of divination out? Or are you like a serious viewer? Maybe you are yourself a diviner. I'd love to hear all about it in the comments. All right, so we're going to start over here. Where's my stick? There it is. I know somebody asked me what my stick was the other day in the comments, and I don't know if they were being like silly about, it's hard to tell, somebody's tone through the way that they're communicating and typing. But yeah, this stick that I have is actually, it's a chopstick. And I don't know if they knew that or what, but I don't know. It works just fine for me. All right, let's see. We have over here, it looks like a kind of devil archetype. You can see up here, it looks like the little devil, and then maybe like a bigger devil. So I almost feel like this is kind of almost like rebellion on rebellion, right? This is like a rebel that is constantly thinking of new ways to rebel or to change things or to, dismantle the system. I was trying to think of the right words, right? The devil energy really, to me, is so much about freedom. It is about the pursuit thereof. It is about, having to do what you have to do to live the life that you want to live. And sometimes we find ourselves in situations that we thought we wanted to be in, or we thought this was going to be the right thing, or, we do what we were taught. We follow the kind of path that, most people are enchanted with, which, is the typical, we call it the American dream here because that's where I'm at in America. I don't know if they call it that in other places or whatever, but, this idea of like going to school, meeting somebody, getting married, having kids, the career, the cars, the 2.5 dogs or whatever it is, that's not for everybody. And the archetype of the devil, although it can be other things and it can definitely cause some troubles in our lives, it is usually an indicator to me in my reading that there's an energy of rebellion and actively and intentionally going against the social mores, that is the social ethics and morals and behaviors, right? Manners. And it's also about, autonomy. It's about sticking up for yourself. We all know the story of Lucifer, right? Which is the devil. And, of course, it can be looked at in a variety of ways, but in a very, simplistic, kind of a little bit out of context view, you would see somebody who finds that their position, their work is unfair, right? They are not receiving the same benefits as others that maybe are doing the same amount of work or maybe even less. This is a rebellion against the caste system. This is a rebellion against the class system. This is a rebellion against, unfair work conditions to some degree, right? And so when Lucifer kind of rallies, I always think of this fool's trying to unionize or something, right? He's having all the secret meetings and stuff, trying to rally his group of angels to stand up to God with him. And what happens? Yeah, they push him out of heaven and they bring the scabs in, right? So if we look at it in that way, and this is a very simplistic view, and this is one snapshot, right? Because then, Lucifer, which is Venus, which is the light bringer, which is not exactly synonymous with the devil, by the way. But enough so in this case, this is why my symbolism kind of overlaps with Lucifer. There is a rebellion and usually, right, we look at somebody like this who is a whistleblower or an activist or a whatever, and we applaud them, right? And it's so much about somebody doing something finally. Somebody had the courage to finally say something, to stand up, and then they are, tossed into exile. And so I feel as I'm looking at this, and then we have this character next to a tree right here. Okay, so we have also the tree of life, and this kind of leans over into the metaphysical, the spiritual realm. Okay, so to me, Sagittarius, this is really so much about breaking cycles within the family, even within self, right? If you are somebody who has parented or been a caregiver and you have any kind of like self-awareness, right? You probably are a person that has said at some point, I want to give my kids better than I had. I want to do better. I remember the moments that were very painful for me, and the things, the themes, the attitudes, the tone of voice, the, whatever it is. I remember what made my life intolerable as a child. And now here you are, then raising children, grandchildren, whatever, and you start to see some of these same behaviors come up in yourself. Right? The same as your parents, the same as your caregivers, the same kind of words, tones, punishments, emotional overload, or, which might even kind of be worse sometimes, completely inaccessible parent, or your parents or your caregivers, inaccessible emotionally. Not being noticed, not being listened to. Getting lost in the shuffle of things. And you start to see some of this stuff come up in your own parenting, and that can be very confronting. It can be very confronting. Even if we do everything we can to do this different, that stuff is written into us. It is coded into our neural pathways. And so we have to make a conscious decision, not only for the people around us or the people that you are caretaking for, raising, but for you. Because you are re-traumatizing yourself by playing the role of the abuser. I mean, ultimately, I hate to say it that way because that's a hard sting. Now, you might not be abusive and you might not be an abuser, but, right? Sometimes we start to regurgitate some of the things that are said to us over and over. That doesn't matter. Your feelings don't matter. Whatever you are trying to show me right now, I don't have time for it. I don't care. Just the dismissiveness, the anger at being interrupted. You do something for your kid that they really, I keep hitting the thing, that they really want, and you go all out of your way to do it for them, get it for them, and then, they could care less. These are all normal experiences. We all have them when we're raising kids, right? But sometimes, we have these moments where that old stuff, it comes up. And seeing this, it tells me that you are acutely aware of something that has gone on, or something that happened, or you said, or you felt, or, whatever it was. And it reminded you of being young. It reminded you of the turmoil, the pain. And it's heartbreaking to realize that, geez, I might be doing some of the same stuff. I don't think anything has made me feel more guilt or shame in my life as when I've heard myself speaking like to my daughter the way that I remember being spoken to at times, you know. And mine wasn't necessarily ever like, I didn't have like a super verbally abusive household by any means, but there was a lot of addiction, right? And there was a lot of chaos. You just didn't know, the abuse was different. Mostly it was physical and, SA basically. But I do remember like things that I had said or that I had heard, and I can hear myself saying them. And it's stuff like, it is a lot of the things that I realize that I'm saying are somewhere around trying to manage emotions, right? Trying to be dismissive of your child's emotions because it's a lot. It's overwhelming. It can be, I'm neurodivergent, so I get overstimulated. My daughter gets we all get overstimulated. But the work here, and I'm using myself as an example because not only am I want to keep myself, what's the word? I want to take responsibility, right? But I also want you to know, and I want you to hear me when I say this, that I'm just a regular person that, like, I make so many mistakes every day. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I'm trying just like anybody else, But this place that I have here to do readings and to be with you, it is also another form of therapy in a lot of ways. I get to commune with you beautiful people and feel your energies. And it makes me think about the things that I also am feeling and thinking about. And maybe I haven't in a long time, but it brings it up to the surface. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate you being here with me so that we can talk about this stuff that's not easy. And don't think that it's not lost on me that, like, a lot of people, they come to these because they want to hear about, like, are you going to have money coming? Are you going to get a job soon? Is my significant other cheating on me? Do they still love me? These kinds of things. And that's fine. We do those readings. But I'm also going to talk about the stuff that is painful. And we love to congratulate each other about breaking cycles. But what does that actually look like? Because we need to experience the cycle, and in some way, usually the catalyst that is going to get us to change is when we see those behaviors in ourselves. Hurt people hurt people. They do. Not all of them, but some of them do. And I don't want to be a hurt person hurting people. I don't want you to be a hurt person hurting people. So I think it's important to have these kind of moments where we see, you want to change the cycle of your family. You see some of those behaviors in yourself. You are brave for looking. You are brave for even considering. And you don't have to do it out loud, although there is freedom in that. Even if this is just a quiet little thing and you're sitting there and you're thinking, she's wrong. There's no way. I've been such a great parent. But then you remember the little thing. The little thing then. The little thing now. The little thing, 10 years ago. And it's all right. Because guess what? Today is the day that we're going to get started or devote ourselves to breaking those chains, to breaking those cycles, to saying, I don't think so. We don't need to take this with us. We're going to leave this in the old house, right? We're moving forward. Now let's get into something else. Let's see what else is happening here. Okay, so it does feel to me that there has been maybe maybe you got divorced at some point. I think that's probably what we're looking at here, or separated. Now, we have a person over here. We have a person here. This one's holding a heart. This person is running as fast as they can, like up out of there. There's another person with him. It looks like a younger person. So I'm almost kind of wondering if maybe there was a separation at some point. Maybe you were like the custodial parent, or the main parent, or whatever, primary parent. I was trying to think of the word primary parent. But I do feel like, and there is an A. Look, there's an A. Maybe they have an A name, or maybe you just call them by the A name. But I do feel like they constantly continue to try. I don't care if you've been divorced for like 30 years. This person will never miss a chance to try to get back together with you. You were the peak of the mountaintop for them. And I don't think you care about that, and that's fine. But I will forewarn you that it seems that they are going through a breakup of their own, maybe another divorce. And I see you like preemptively making yourself scarce. Okay, because you don't want to take these calls. You do not want to, bump into each other for too long at the grocery store or anything like that. I don't think that you're going to get back together with them. In fact, I know you won't. You're shaking your head. You're saying no right now. I can tell. But what I do see you running towards, and we do have over here, it looks like a person holding the sword, okay? And then next over here, we have a person holding the cup, okay? So, to me, it really feels like you are actively searching out passion. What does that look like for you? It could be a hobby. It could be, you're finishing some kind of project or starting a project. Maybe it is sensuality or love or dating or, kind of what's the word? Bringing the family back together, trying again for like the 50th time to get everybody back in close together. But whatever it is, there's a lot of mental because there is the sword. So you are in your head. You are planning. This is not just like, moving off emotions. There is a lot that's going into this. I do feel that we have 2, 3 people right here. And they're all kind of in a boat, you can see, or a sled or something. So I do feel like there is a sense of, maybe actually like getting together with family. I feel like you're going to have to be the one to initiate it and make it happen. You might need to be the one that hosts it as well. Okay, and I'm looking. And I see we have the head up here, and then we have this body. And it reminds me very much of the Venus of Willendorf. Is that what it's called? This primordial goddess, this, proto-goddess almost, that is big-bodied and, kind of plump and full and beautiful and gorgeous and full of life and sustenance and so I feel this real like shifting towards becoming kind of the head of the family. Maybe it is that like your mom or grandmother, and I have to say, I feel like you come from a very feminine family, a family that has a lot of women. I don't feel a lot of masculine energy at all, which super jealous. I swear, I always say if I ever get divorced, dude, I'm living in a world that is 100% women. It really is. It's just going to be, I don't know, just a bunch of older women in my life. That's it. And my daughter, of course. But yeah, I mean, it feels like you have this network of people that you've grown up around, that you have, gotten to know, that are also good friends and role models. And I feel that there's this safety, this sense of flourishing when you are in that environment. And I feel like the more that goes on in your life, the more you're drawn back into, the family, if that is of origin or your chosen family. I do think that in this time there's going to be that kind of maybe less of hermit mode, because it feels like it. It feels like you've been kind of like having trouble connecting on a deeper level with people in your life. But I do feel like this is going to be that marked change. Okay, so going back to those sisters or aunties, cousins, best friends, whatever it is, I think that this is going to make all the difference for you. Absolutely. Okay, now we have the sailboat, we have a bird. So I do also feel like you're having some technical difficulties with the phone, with the computer, something like that. We have, it looks like it says later, Later, later. I just feel this real like sense of, the number 67 right there, 67. I feel like there's a real sense of needing to stand by. Patience. It's like, that's the big, like, look at right here. It's saying patience, 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 The other thing I'm seeing is we have birds that are migrating. So I almost wonder if, as you are becoming more involved with your family and being around people that, ultimately I feel like make you feel, or at least the environment that you're in when you're with them and their company, it makes you feel more whole, like you're at home. Where I think whatever it is that contrasts that, it just is not working the way that you wanted it to, and maybe it did for a long time. Maybe it did for a while, and I think that you're trying to like salvage as much as you can, but I do feel like you're coming to the understanding that, ultimately, I don't know. I feel like it's like there's not like a need to return to something so much as making the decision to do what you want to do instead of like prioritizing what everybody else needs. And I think the more that you do that, the more you're going to realize that you maybe have not been, choosing for yourself. And that in turn, I feel, it feeds into that almost kind of unrest within self. And then at times, yeah, you run into these moments where maybe you were a little bit short with your son, or you were snappy and unfair with your grandkids, or whatever. And realizing that, okay, this is where I need to do the work, because I am a person that knows that where I came from, I don't want my kids to ever know about that. I don't want my kids to ever know what it feels like, to be belittled, or to be, whatever, physically, emotionally, spiritually mistreated. And, instead of letting that build up and get into a place where, yeah, you really, say or do something that you, like, absolutely cannot take back, right? Working on it before it begins to build up, reminding yourself. And again, I know this stuff is hard to talk about. It's hard for me to talk about it. That's one of my biggest things, is really trying to give my daughter better than what I had. And when I hurt her feelings, or, I forget to do something, or I've, maybe been a little bit short and snappy about, get your shoes off and wash your hands, it's dinner time, and getting frustrated or whatever. I don't like that. I don't like that I do that. I am going to work on it continually, right? But it is really shame. It feels like a lot of shame, even saying it out loud, But we all know this is like, we're all dealing with like almost impossible situations. If you are raising children, if you are taking care of grandkids, maybe you're one of those saintly grandparents that is helping alleviate some of the work of, the child care and that kind of stuff. Like, instead of having to be at daycare all the time, some of the time. And you are a saint, a blessing, and thank you. Because a lot of us don't have that kind of help. A lot of us don't have anybody for our kids to go be with, or to babysit or whatever. I would say more families that I know than not don't have a lot of extra help from within the family or outside of the family. And so we're all doing our best, hopefully, right? Or if we're not, we wake up to it and try, I hope. But I think it's important to confront these parts of self. Like, hey, man, I've been getting a little cranky lately, and I need to kind of reel it in, because ultimately the reason that I'm here is not only, my personal magnum opus, but yeah, it's to lift the vibration. It's to, provide good foundation for this beautiful being that I love before she goes out into the world. And not much else is more important than that. So if I have to feel a little bit shameful to hold myself, responsible, and say, maybe I was not the nicest yesterday. Maybe I, did get more upset about something benign than I should have, right? Or frustrated or whatever. So anyways, I want to thank you for holding me accountable and, holding yourself accountable and doing the work, because literally there's nothing more important. I mean, it really is. Whatever the work looks like for us. And I don't mean our careers, unless your career is somehow involved with your greater inner work, or self-evolution, which it could be. Hell yeah. Heck yeah. I mean, let's see. What were we on? 15. Number 15 is the number. Number 80, 15, 80, 80, and one last. I don't know if the sound was still on. I faded it to black. I don't know what's going to happen with that. Hopefully I don't know. I've never hit that button before. I'm just going to let it roll because it looks like it's still on. And then I dropped my phone on the mixing board thing. My bad. We're going to do the Cincy Child affirmation cards. And I'm just going to go like that and stop and turn it. And it says, I am talented and I welcome my creative flow. And I welcome my creative flow. All right. Well, Sagittarius, I love you. Thank you for being here with me. I feel like this was, I don't know. I mean, I guess I kind of always take over the readings a little bit. And thank you for putting up with that. Again, this is kind of like my own little therapy, my extra bonus therapy session too. So, it is what it is, what it is. I love you. Thank you for being understanding. If you want to like, subscribe, or leave a comment, I'd love to hear from you. Other than that, we'll talk soon. Good night.